Hello everyone, amateur meteorologist First Weather here. It is February 8th, 2020, and this is going to be a forecast discussion for the outlook for the rest of the month and how things are looking like for the winter of 2019 and 2020, and if we really have any hope for seeing a good snowstorm for the Mid-Atlantic and the coastal sections of the Northeast, which includes the major cities along I-95. Before we get started, let me just point out that my mic is a bit messed up, so my voice might sound a little echoey or a little weird today, so please bear that in mind, and I apologize for any inconvenience, but let's get started. So, let's start off right now with the GEFS Ensemble. The GEFS Ensemble for, let's see, February 10th, 2020. So, this is on Monday, I believe, and so we have pretty big ridge out west that comes here, so we have some pretty sizable cold air spilling into this part of the country, and then we have a little cutoff low here, and then we have a ridge in the east, so this means warmer than average conditions right here. And if we look into this area right here, you can see the just monster positive NAO. We have this huge high right here, and this huge low, which makes the jet stream very straight, very zonal. And this promotes this ridging in the east and really allows that southeast high to really amplify and create a lot of warm temperatures in the southeast. Now this is, this is for February 13th, 3 days later, and we sort of have the same pattern in place. We do have a little bit of cold air coming down into the central portion of the country, but that southeast ridge is still strong as always. And we can see that right here. The entire eastern part of the country is warm. So that's how it looks like on February 13th. And this is again the GFS Ensemble. Now this is for February 16th, 12Z Sunday, and we can see nothing really has changed much. We still have that persistent southeast ridge right here. We have a little bit of a ridge right here, allowing cold air to spill into the western and central portion of the country here. And again, the flow pattern is something like this. Let's see. So we got the jet streams like this, it goes like this, and then it goes boom, right? So you have the warmth right here, you have the cold right here, and so that creates a strong thermal gradient in this area right along here. Okay, more specifically right around here. In this area right here, and so that can create a lot of severe weather and a lot of rain in these areas right here, and I'm going to get to that in the later stages of this video. Now here is the European Ensemble for February 16th, 2020, and we can see that it sort of has a similar picture, but the trough is more amplified, and is further out to the west, and so this allows the ridge to build in even further to the west, causing warmer than average conditions basically east of the Mississippi. So the east is basically going to be basking in warmth from this weekend all the way to the 16th and even longer after that, while the areas west of the Mississippi, especially the northern and central states, are going to stay relatively below average with cooler than average temperatures. Now here's a GEFS Ensemble for February 18th. I believe this is 2 days later than the European Ensemble, and so we can see that it still has that persistent ridge in place. The main feature that is consistent in every single day from February 10th or 8th all the way through the 18th is the ridge in the southeast, and so this keeps the East Coast consistently warm for the next 2 weeks with well above average temperatures in some spots. And so this really is looking like this could be excuse me, a top 5 winter event in terms of above average temperatures for many cities on the East Coast. Already, cities like DC, Boston are already in their top 5 warmest winters on record since record keeping began in the 1800s, in the late 1800s. So definitely a very mild winter for the area, unusually warm, while things out west are going to be more variable, but generally better chances for below average temperatures in this area right here. Here's the European Ensemble for the 18th as well, and you can see it is more amplified with that ridge in the west and the trough in the west and the ridge in the east. And I'm inclined to believe the European because the GFS has just had an absolute profound cold bias this winter and pushing that trough further to the east. So I really do believe the European here is more accurate with the below average conditions in the west, and then the big monster ridge in the east. And so again, I do think that this strong thermal gradient that's created right around here is really going to create some problems with a lot of rain and a lot of potentially severe weather over the next few weeks. And that again is verified here. This is a GFS Ensemble predicted precip for the next 2 weeks. And we can see there's this large area right here where we're going to see up to 3, 5, maybe even 8 inches of rain in some isolated areas, especially in the deep south right here. And again, this is where some of those greater severe weather threats are going to lie, as you get that extreme cold here, and that extreme ridging right here, causing a lot of warmth in the east and northeast. And so when these weather systems collide, those air masses collide, you're going to have a lot of action going down in the deep south. But as well, on top of that, all the low pressure systems are going to be riding that thermal gradient. And so with the main jet stream pattern being more something like this, the low pressure system is going to be tracking in this area right here, or even further to the south a little bit, and that's going to be causing things to become very wet, especially for the south and the southeast. And now here's a GIF showing the average temperature anomalies for the next few days, 5-day temperature anomalies. And you can see the GFS just has that persistent dome of warmth in this area right here. And keep in mind, the GFS over the past 3 weeks has had an unbelievable cold bias by pushing troughs further to the east. So you can basically expand this ridge right here and take this about 400 miles to the northwest. So this area right here is going to be essentially record warm for the next 3 weeks at least. And I wouldn't be surprised if temperature anomalies for the next 2, maybe even 3 weeks are running close to 8 to 10 degrees above average for areas under this black dome right here, while conditions here should be slightly below average to below average. So again, very strong ridge in the southeast, and it really doesn't look like it's ending soon. So again, very bad pattern for people that want snow if you're in the I-95 corridor, and if you want snow in the mid-Atlantic and northeast. Now let's look at the teleconnections. The PNA right now is rock bottom negative, which is again support the trough in the west and a ridge in the east, and it stays negative all the way through the 22nd according to this forecast, before finally poking upwards into being slightly positive. And then the NAO just positive throughout. Boom, look at that, very bad. This promotes very zonal strong jet stream that can flood the country with Pacific air. And this again promotes ridging in the east, and is essentially a big no-no for if you want snow and cold in the east. It essentially prevents any blocking from taking place and any cold air from spilling down into the south. And here's the EPO, again, negative right now, which is actually a good thing, but with all the other indices, that negative EPO promotes troughing in the west rather than the east. And then as we go through time, it's actually going to become positive, which again further worsens the outlook for cold in the east, and strengthens the case for record warmth for areas in the mid-Atlantic, southeast, and northeast. And now here's the AO forecast over the next 2 weeks. Really just record positive territory. It looks like over the next few days, and even over the past few days, it's gone like off the charts. Really just highlighting the extent to how bad the pattern is for cold in the east. And this forecast shows the AO staying positive all the way till the end, or the latter third of February, which promotes ridging in the east, the cold being bottled up in Canada, and very little high latitude blocking and snow chances for the east coast. And this is illustrated right here. This is the EPS Ensemble for February 18th, and we can see that strong high pressure system right here. Okay? So this is your strong high pressure system, and these are all your lows right here. So your polar vortex is bottled up. It is in the shape of a donut right here. It is very strong. Circulation is very strong of the polar vortex. All that extreme cold air is bottled up in the northern pole. And while this means very warm conditions for the United States, especially the eastern part of the country, this does mean bitter cold for the Arctic. And so, actually, Arctic sea ice right now is at some of its highest levels in the past 10 years due to that polar vortex being so strong the entire winter, bottling up all that cold air in the northern hemisphere. And so this trend, according to the European Ensemble, looks to continue all the way till the latter half of February. And so again, this means cold here, but very warm in the eastern part of the country. Now here's the MJO forecast. This right on the left is what a lot of the models are showing with the MJO right here currently, and then basically just meandering into phases 5, 6, and then null, where it's not really playing a significant role. And so this promotes, again, it being in the more neutral to null phase. When it's inside the circle, that basically means it doesn't really have any effect. And already, since right now it's really close to that circle, that means the MJO is having minimal influence on weather patterns in the United States. So this defers the role or the impact of teleconnections way up. And so with teleconnections being absolutely abysmal, with a positive NAO, positive Arctic oscillation, negative PNA, and EPO that's trending positive, this is an all-out message of record warmth in the east. There's no better way to put it. The eastern part of the country over the next 2 to 3 weeks looks like an absolute blowtorch. There's no sugarcoating it. Very low chances for snow for the mid-Atlantic, coastal sections of the Northeast. However, the interior portions of the Northeast have good chances of snow as we get those inland Appalachian runners with that ridge in the Southeast. Those areas look to see pretty good snowfall amounts potentially, but the mid-Atlantic, I-95, basically forget about it for the next 2 to 3 weeks. The chance of a major snowstorm is essentially zero. Now, on the right here, you have the American MJO forecast, and this is the only MJO forecast which takes it away from the null circle right here and then takes it to phase 7 by February 22nd. And again, phases 5, 6, and 7 are all very warm phases for the East Coast, but by the end of the month, we're approaching this area, and it's going to become interesting to see if this verifies and if this can go like this. Because, of course, phases 8, 1, 2, and a little bit of 3 support cooler conditions in the East Coast. And this has failed all winter. If you might recall, a few weeks ago, we had the potential to go to phase 7 and then phase 8, but that didn't verify. It went into phase 7, then collapsed, and went back to phase 4, 5, and 6. So it's going to be interesting to monitor this and see what plays out. Right now, I'm trending with the scenario on the right a little bit more than the left, but really right now it's a toss-up. And here's why I think this has potential to take place in the next slide. So here is the let's see. Oh, on the right here is your February 2019 temperature anomalies. And so does this remind you of something? We can see right here with the extensive below average temperature anomalies here, the jet stream must have been something like this. And then with the extreme above average temperature anomalies here, the jet stream must have done something like that. What does this remind you of? The pattern outlook for this month. Trough in the northwest, big ridge in the southeast. This is exactly what's happening this winter, and this is what happened in March of 2019. That trough finally spilled to the east, the southeast ridge finally lost and went and retreated, and we finally got some cold in the eastern part of the country. Right here. So, let me go back up. So there definitely is potential that winter is not lost. Obviously, my winter forecast has busted heavily, as well as many other meteorologists across the country. And definitely now we're not going to end the winter on even an average note for the east. We're definitely ending this winter with temperatures well above average for the December through February time range. And even if we included March, this winter still would end up well above average in terms of temperatures for the eastern part of the country. I wouldn't be surprised if temperature anomalies were even 4 to 6 degrees above average for a large swath of the country east of the Mississippi when things are all said and done. But there is potential in March, especially the first 2 weeks, where we could see a sudden shift in the pattern with the polar vortex loosening, the AO and NAO turning negative, the MJO going to phase 8, and we could see our first major snow for the Mid-Atlantic and coastal I-95 and major cities along the Northeast. This is a slim chance. Persistence usually wins out, and what happened last year could be an anomaly. From what I've seen, these southeast ridges can really stay in place and be really stubborn and just be stuck for many, many weeks at a time. But it is historically rare to have a warm pattern like this for so long in the east during the winter and not really have any time period of blocking. So it really is a toss-up right now. What I do know is that until the 25th of February, things are basically a lock for blowtorch conditions in the east. Very low major snowstorm chances, extreme warmth, temperatures running 15 to 20 degrees above average on particular days each week, and with below average temperatures in this part of the country right here. After that is where things become uncertain. Do we finally see a pattern shift, or do we continue with the warmth in the east and the cooler than average conditions in the northwest? The answer to that question will become more clear as we get closer and closer to the end of the month. And I want to close with this one last thing here. These are the average temperature anomalies for the past 7 Marches. And as you can see, there's been this general trend to see below average temperature anomalies for the eastern part of the country during March, with ridging in the west and southwest. And so this is definitely interesting to see. Marches in recent years have trended cooler than average, and so it's definitely notable to see that with this record warm February, last year's March also became cooler than average. So there's evidence on both sides whether this March will turn colder and potentially snowier for the eastern part of the country. And keep in mind again, much higher average high temperatures in March, higher sun angle, so it really is much more difficult to get a proper snowstorm in March. But there have been many occurrences of snowy Marches for the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, so we'll just have to wait and see. And I'll be sure to post update videos as we get closer and closer to the end of the month. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, found it informative, and I'll see you next time.